Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host, Jay, aka Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy? Final episode of 2025.
Yeah, man, I'm not gonna lie, man. It's been a long year, dude. We've been covered a lot of basketball. I think this was our first full season. This past 2024-2025 season was our first full season coverage, kind of really getting into the weeds of everything in terms of covering stuff on the podcast, really in depth. I think this was our best full year's coverage.
Yeah.
2025 did us very, very well. I think we had some of the craziest trades that we've ever seen. Craziest trades, craziest transactions. The draft has definitely played out very well for a handful of teams over the last, year and a half. So, it's really weird to already be talking about 2026. It felt like 2025 went by like that, dude. It felt like the Luka trade, was 2 seconds ago, man. They had a playoff series. They didn't have the first half of the 2025-26 season. Time is flying, man. But I'm enjoying every second of the NBA basketball we've gotten so far, man. Can't lie.
100%, man. And today, it's just going to be a celebration. It's going to be a look back at 2025 because a lot has happened in the NBA. And today's episode, guys, it's plain and simple. We're going to be counting down our top 5 storylines, moments, that sort of thing. Anything NBA related, we're doing a top 5 to cap off 2025. Again, like Jay mentioned, crazy year in the NBA. I'm really interested to see where our top 5s end up landing. But it's going to be a great episode. It's going to be a great way to cap off the year. You guys are going to be getting this episode basically on December 31st. So we're literally right at the end of 2025. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Thank you for rocking out with us throughout all of this year. And yeah, today should be a great episode. But Jay, before we start off our final episode of 2025, we do have to plug our socials. Make sure you follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at The Routine Jumper. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best daily NBA content. We got the picks back up and running. We have news. We got different series. We have the clips. All that stuff can be found over there. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast networks, make sure you leave a review on Apple, Spotify, all the good stuff. Subscribe. We appreciate all of your support over there. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. We appreciate all of you guys. Again, the best year of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast this year. We have a lot more to come in 2026, and we're going to try to end it strong here today. Yes, Jay, are you ready to recap 2025?
Hey, man. 2025 was a movie, low-key. The NBA, it turned into 2K on us real quick. We've never seen the NBA in the state that it's been like this last year, bro. So I'm excited to kind of go over some of these talking points.
100%, man. From start to finish, this 2025 was crazy. People like to say that the NBA is the best sports soap opera, and I could not agree anymore. From start to finish, where do you want to go off the court? Where do you want to go on the court? We have the best product, and I'm glad to say that we covered the best league in the NBA as well, and I'm glad that we're going to be able to count down the moments today. Yeah, but man. Jay, when we're making this list, we probably had a lot of other stuff in mind. We're like, man, it's actually really, at least for myself, it was a lot harder to make a top 5 than I thought. How do you feel like making this top 5?
So it's funny, man. I'm not going to lie to you. The most interesting part about it was that making the top 5 was harder, more just off of the strength that so much happened in 2025.
I know. I mean? Yeah, exactly. I had to review some stuff. I'm like, man, this all happened this year? That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing for me was just so much happened within this time frame that it wasn't necessarily a difficulty as what moments really stood out. The question was just when you only get 5 options, which ones do you think stand out the most? Now, don't get me wrong. Some I may have left off the list just because the world was shocked by them. Maybe some of them I left off the list because I kind of assumed, it would be something that maybe you put on your list as well, and I didn't want to potentially overlap. Things like that as well, right? So certain stuff may have gotten left off my list just to make sure that we had enough room on the podcast not to overlap. And if we don't overlap and it still doesn't get brought up, we'll obviously list a couple of honorable mentions towards the end of the podcast. Yeah. But this is one of those years where I think parody really came in a different format this past year, man.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma City Thunder were at the tippity top of all of that as far as, coming from this team that 2 seasons ago was drafted in the lottery, and here they are. They lose in the first round of the playoffs the next season. The next season after that, they're NBA champs. But we saw a lot more in between that, man. We saw Minnesota with Ant, the OG click killer. We brought that up starting in 2024. We brought it over to 2025 and kept that motion going. We saw the Detroit Pistons, who were the worst worst team in basketball a few years ago, not only get their lives together in 2025, but they've also kind of continued that thread a little bit into this season, maybe a lot of it this season, given the fact that they're sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference right now. We've seen a couple of other teams really fall apart. The Memphis Grizzlies, the Atlanta Hawks, a couple of different teams that just don't look like the squad we saw back in 2023, 2024. 2025 revealed a lot about team building, longevity for superstars, and TV. I gotta be honest, a lot of our OGs got real old in 2025. That's another one
man.
that really stood out. There was a couple of OGs that started to show their age, both literally and figuratively, in 2025, bro.
Man, this is going to be so interesting, and and I agree with you here. You know what? You know how we do when we do the top 5, positions and stuff like that. We do the honorable mention beforehand. Let's actually do the honorable mentions at the end. I actually like that idea. We'll kind of rock with that. So Jay, let's start off this countdown over here.
All right.
So I'm going to ask you for your number 5. What was your top 5? Your number 5 storyline, moment, whatever you want from the NBA in 2025.
So we're going to start spicy. It's a little bit more off the court than on the court. But at the same time, I think it played a big part in the way that the playoffs kind of formulated itself last playoffs, which is lost my joy Jimmy Butler, man. Lost my joy Jimmy Butler sparked up one of the most interesting trade deadline conversations that we've seen in a while. The Phoenix Suns in the mix. The Golden State Warriors were in the mix. The Memphis Grizzlies, who Jimmy Butler told no, right? But Jimmy Butler's whole debacle not only really impacted the Eastern Conference standings as far as Miami, because the product on the floor from Miami when Jimmy was playing wasn't great. But shoot, even when they sent Jimmy home, y'all remember they put him on mini sabbatical for a little while. There were still questions about whether or not the Tyler Hero thing could bring them forward as far as being a legitimate playoff team, and that's leaked into this season where there's real questions about whether or not Miami feels the need to move off of Tyler Hero in order to go get somebody else, right? And all these other things. I think the Jimmy Butler debacle, it started so much because not only did it help really start turning the wheels on like what is the next move for the Miami Heat, right? Who's always that team that's in conversation for that big name superstar, all-star caliber player. But when it got roped in, when the word came out that Golden State wanted to see what's up with Jimmy Butler, the first thing we thought was playoff Jimmy next to Steph is going to be a movie. And the first couple of weeks when he showed up, it was looking like it was going to be one of them ones.
I mean, the first round of the playoffs against the Rockets, they were looking damn good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think when you look back at that the no joy Jimmy Butler storyline, the first thing the Golden State Warriors probably think is, dang, I wish we could have got Jimmy sooner. That's probably the first thing they're thinking, is just getting them well acclimated, getting that figured out, and maybe kind of focusing a little bit more on trying to get an established center into their rotation at the trade deadline. Something a little bit closer at the buzzer, as opposed to kind of putting all their chips on Jimmy Butler at the last minute, because that drama dragged on all the way to the final buzzer, it felt like, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was one of the biggest things for me was Jimmy Butler. If you want to talk about the soap opera aspect of the NBA, right? There's nobody better at when he's upset to stir in the pot and making sure everybody who can be involved is involved. Jimmy Butler knows how to rattle a room. And in 2025, it was an interesting situation because it was Kevin Durant and Jimmy Butler. It was Steph and Jimmy Butler. It was, did the Memphis Grizzlies finally take their big swing after an all-star player? It eventually shook down to them Golden State going after Jimmy Butler. But, now we're further into 2025. And remember, Lauri Markkanen was on the table at one point.
Yeah.
And now, do the Warriors question that? Like, these are the things that I think the ripple effects of the no joy Jimmy Butler thing continues to roll down, because now that the Warriors didn't get Lauri Markkanen, maybe the Pistons do. Maybe Utah just throws their hands up and says, we're not trading them at all. That's what they kind of are telling us now. It's a lot of other things that happened because of that Jimmy Butler stuff. And it's really interesting because I thought this Miami Heat squad was going to be the last place that Jimmy played his basketball at. So to see him in a different jersey already felt weird. To see it in Golden State, a little bit crazier. I'm not going to lie.
Bro, I'm going to review one of my honorable mentions in the past. The thing is, I was really considering this was just the whole Last Dance Warriors aspect of it all.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking just the whole Last Dance Warriors. But man, just speaking on the Jimmy Butler thing, I can't believe we have another chapter of a Jimmy Butler crash out of a new team. Because we had the infamous practice over there in
Yeah.
Minnesota. They're saying, "Pay me!" He's yelling at the manager over there while Jeff Teague is on the other side laughing. You
Yeah.
have the Tobias Harris over me debacle with the Philadelphia 76ers. And like you mentioned, I thought it was going to all end here with Miami. The way that he was glowingly talking about them during their finals runs and all that.
Yeah.
No. Jimmy Butler forces his way out again. The lose your joy crash out this time. He didn't even fully go on some interview and something like that. He just said he lost his joy. And it's becoming a new meme of 2025 too. Because I feel like
Yeah.
with the way the Warriors are playing right now, Jimmy might be losing his joy right now. But at the same time, it's crazy how that all transpired. The idea of Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry teaming up near the end of their careers was nothing on my mind. So the fact that the Warriors even pulled this off is kind of crazy. And it's kind of their last swing at the bat. Steve Kerr said a couple of weeks ago, we are a fading dynasty. They're accepting that. They're accepting this as the last dance. They don't have much time left. So whether this works out or not, Jimmy Butler, this is probably going to be the end place of it all. I mean, all their contracts are going to be ending on the same time and everything like that. So definitely an interesting storyline that I did not see coming at all coming into 2025. But definitely, it's honestly still a developing story even going into 2026.
I mean, this is one of those that's going to be one of the more interesting ones out of 2025 because this trade, like you said, I think you phrased it perfectly. This was their last swing of the bat. The choice of Jimmy Butler over, again, Laurie was in the conversation. Remember Anthony Davis, who still is kind of in the conversation now, but back then, that was really, that was at the forefront, was really making that swing for maybe an Anthony Davis. There's a couple of different guys that were thrown out as that quote-unquote last ride chance for the Golden State Warriors to maximize, especially the potential of moving Jonathan Kuminga. And again, they still have the opportunity to do that this season and maybe do it without having to attach Jimmy Butler in the mix of it. Now, Draymond Green's name has come up a lot more than I ever expected as far as trading. But again, that's just another layer of it because their contracts are so lucrative at the top of some of these rosters, especially like Golden State's. We have to actually have a conversation now about Draymond potentially being traded, and that has partially to do with Jimmy Butler being on the team, being a little bit younger, having a little bit more two-way play as an offensive player, and it makes Draymond the odd man out, even though as far as everyone is known and everyone is concerned, dating back to the early stages of the dynasty, Steph's the best player, but Draymond's the heartbeat. So to even hear him on the trade block is crazy, but it all stems from a trade like this being in their lap where they had to take the swing, but now they're reaping the repercussions of it. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how this plays, that last swing of the bat, how well Jimmy Butler plays over the next essentially two postseasons, barring that the Golden State Warriors make it to the playoffs both seasons, will be the last real standing results that we have as far as this team being at the peak of its powers. Like you said, Steve Kerr already kind of admitted that the dynasty is fading. If that doesn't tell you that they see the writing on the wall, then I don't know what else would. Because if they're letting you know that this is happening quickly, we can all see it. But if they're letting you know in their own locker room, they can feel it. That goes to let you know they're on borrowed time.
100%, man. Definitely a good choice at number 5 over there. I'm going to show you my number 5. And my number 5 for moments/storylines of this year, it's the depleted East, man. That playoff run over from last year really had a ripple effect here because we got to remember what happened. Round 1, Bucks versus Pacers. Damian Lillard tears his Achilles.
Yeah.
You could see on his face right away, no reaction, but he knew something was wrong. He couldn't get up. He got up in his own power, but we all knew he tore his Achilles. Next round, Jason Tatum versus the New York Knicks. Yeah. He tears his Achilles and ends the Boston Celtics' hopes in that one, even though the Knicks were probably the better team even at the time of the injury. But the Boston Celtics lose their guy. They're still doing well, mind you, but they're without Jason Tatum. Let's be honest, he's probably going to be out for the year. And then, worst of all, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, one Tyrese Halliburton tears his Achilles.
Yeah.
3 Achilles tears to 3 of some of the top stars in the Eastern Conference, which changes the directory of those 3 teams in general.
Yeah.
The Indiana Pacers bottoming out in the East right now. The Celtics, they're still doing good, but do we still see them as a true contender? Probably not, at least for this year. And then the whole Milwaukee Bucks saga, trying to waive and stretch Damian Lillard, the acquisition of Miles Turner, and now Giannis potentially leaving. This ripple effect from that one playoff run on the east side of the bracket has changed the whole complexion of the East for this year in particular.
Yeah.
And we see teams like the Knicks stepping up. We see some surprises like the Toronto Raptors, the Miami Heat, who have shown to be a really good offense. And then we have some no-showers. Cleveland, what's going on? You're a 500 team right now.
Yeah.
So it's just made the East so much wide open. And again, a storyline that's going to continue in for the rest of the season. But it all started with that Eastern Conference injury drought of just 3 straight Achilles injuries. And that's really sucked the wind of the air from the Eastern Conference this season.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right there. I mean, we've discussed it on the podcast so many times. I mean, the East is in a spot right now where they only need one more move for us to view the Eastern Conference even more different from where it is right now, right? We were discussing, I believe it was last podcast, we were like, Lord have mercy, please don't let Giannis end up on like the San Antonio Spurs, right? End up in the Western Conference, and now there's just another Western Conference demon over there that depletes the overall talent pool from the East. Because don't get me wrong, we've with what you like you said before, we've seen the rise of some really interesting talent, not just teams, right? Because one of those teams that you didn't mention was Detroit right now, who's really elevated themselves as well, right? But let's think about some of the individual talents that have really been able to show out during this time frame as well, right? Jalen Johnson has been big time this season.
Yes.
Franz Wagner, when he was healthy, looked like he was on pace to being an all-star for the first time this year. Another player who I think has just not been talked about enough, and I think this goes to show you how, like strong the Eastern Conference is, but at the same time, the bottom it doesn't carry as much weight. Rookie Kneppel has been a beast this year, making headways in Charlotte, but it just hasn't mattered because the winning aspect of Charlotte has not been able to elevate along with what he's been able to bring to the table so far this year, right? So there's a lot of really good individual play going on in the Eastern Conference as well, but the overall team parity is just in a really weird spot right now, you know what I mean? And it's weird because, the New York Knicks won the NBA Cup, right? But it feels like, and maybe this is just from my reception of national media, maybe this is just because the Knicks are living up to the hype and a lot of people aren't used to that, right? Because the Knicks tend to come into the season with high expectations and play beneath them, and this year it feels like they're playing on par.
They're one game behind the first seed.
But it's crazy. It feels like this is the least I've heard about the New York Knicks during a regular season in quite some time. Yeah, here they are, like you said, 1 game out of the first seed, won the NBA Cup. They get it done against the San Antonio Spurs team. That's one of the only teams to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder multiple times this year. And yet, they're kind of just floating under the radar, despite the fact that they're, right there at the top. And it's because they're like one of the only teams that's doing what they kind of came into the season with what they were supposed to do, right? The Orlando Magic have been banged up basically since day one. They entered the season in with Jalen Suggs injured. Since then, they've missed time from Paolo. They're obviously missing time from Franz right now and Jalen Suggs. They have had Mo Wagner all season. You mentioned the Cleveland Cavaliers earlier. I mean, there's so much of an underwhelming team this year. We made the joke last podcast. The Sacramento Kings, who have had a point guard problem, since they traded Tyrese Halliburton and then moved off from De'Aaron Fox, are calling the Cleveland Cavaliers about trying to get, trying to go after Darius Garland. So it goes to, Jared Allen's been on the trade block. I felt like that conversation started back late last season. So when you go through all of this, you look at the teams that had high expectations because of the injuries. Some of them are not playing where they were expected to. You talk about Orlando and Cleveland probably being those teams. Then you got the teams that maybe it was a prove-it year. I would say Detroit was one of those. Like, let's make sure, kind of like the Kings with the beam year. Like, let's make sure you weren't a one-hit wonder last season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Top 6 seed last year, kind of coming off of that crazy, terrible season the year prior. Let's just make sure you're for real. And so far this season, they proved they're really like that. The Eastern Conference is shaped up in a really weird spot where I think that despite the fact that there's been so many injuries, who do you feel confident about coming out of the East this year? Like, that's the question that you fall down to now. You know?
Man, ever since the Pacers went on that run last year, it feels like it's still wide open. The Knicks are doing, like you mentioned, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But it just takes everything to click at that one time, and they can make a run. It's not like it's like, far away, like, the Thunder out in the West. There's a few, like, top good contenders. I feel like,
Ooh.
if people make the right run, who knows what can happen, which is really interesting. So, yes, the injuries sucked. Next year, the East are going to be a lot more competitive, especially when you take into effect Tyrese Halliburton's going to be back with the top pick in the draft. By the way, they're gonna have the Boston Celtics back at their full powers. Hopefully, I mean Damian Lillard's not back with the Bucks, but let's see what happens with the whole Giannis situation. But
Right.
it's gonna be definitely interesting, and the East is still interesting, but definitely took the win on the sails after all those injuries. Jay, let's move on to number 4 on the list. What do you have at your number 4 of 2025?
All right, so number 4 for me is one that I feel like maybe should deserve to be a little bit higher on other people's list, but I feel like it was just one of those things that maybe it felt inevitable and it just happened a lot earlier than many expected. But my individual GOAT, man, my current 2025 GOAT, my favorite player in the NBA right now, SGA, man, helped lead the Oklahoma City Thunder to the promised land. Once upon a time, we saw the big three of Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden get all the way to the NBA Finals, and they ran into the buzzsaw that was the Miami Heat with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. And man, I'm not going to lie to you, dude. The Oklahoma City Thunder, after all of that started to slowly deteriorate, starting with James Harden, ended up on the Rockets. Then Kevin Durant ended up on the Golden State Warriors. Eventually, Russell Westbrook's there by himself. He eventually ends up on the Rockets. The Oklahoma City Thunder look like this complete tear-it-apart team with Chris Paul. SGA is the third guard next to Dennis Schroeder, and maybe the second best player on the team was Danilo Gallinari. You just never thought that that was only a couple years ago. Yet it was, TV. This team had picked in the lottery and grabbed Chet Holmgren. They also had another lottery pick where they ended up getting Jalen Williams, or maybe that was just outside of the lottery. I don't remember. But you make a couple of very solid draft picks. You continue to build up your draft capital. You start to finally see the fruits of your labor with that trade with the LA Clippers as far as, SGA coming into his own as an MVP caliber player over the last 2 seasons. And I've told this story a million times before, and I'll tell it kind of briefly again. But the reason why I Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is my in-season goal, my current favorite player in the NBA is because of the pathway, right? Going from a guy who comes off of the bench for a veteran-led LA Clippers team. You get traded after a rookie season where you played relatively well for a team that, pushed the almighty Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant to 6 games, despite there being a significant talent discrepancy. You end up on the Oklahoma City Thunder, excuse me. You're the third best guard on that team. Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder, they get out the paint. Now you're the lead guy. We're still bad, but we're starting to figure it out. The next season, we're an all-star. The next season, we're an MVP convo. The next season after that, not only are we hoisting the MVP, we're hosting playoff games. And we win the chip. He took every step there was in the version of trying to build up towards a superstar and eventually an MVP caliber player. And we got to see it all culminate into winning league MVP, finals MVP, winning the NBA finals, the shoe drops, 2K cover. Everything happens to SGA in one season, one fell swoop, kind of as like this crescendo of like, dang, we saw this man put in all that work. And it finally showed out. It finally showed out, man. And it was great to see. Personally, as an SGA fan, it was great to finally see that play out. Now, did Game 7 have to go the way it went with Tyrese? We wish it could have went differently. But at the same time, man, I think Oklahoma City was the better team when it was all said and done. And it was good to see them finish the job. As the best team in the regular season all that season, and then get everything done at the end.
Man, I'm going to speak more on OKC a bit later because they might reappear on my list. But I will just speak quickly on SGA. Man, we could finally say that he has become an absolute superstar in this league because not only, like you mentioned, the shoe drops, the MVPs, the amazing playoff run, but we're some of the biggest haters in the NBA, and you truly made it when you have all these guys coming down your neck every single day. When I see SGA hate comments every day, it makes me think in the back of my mind, SGA, again, he's one of my favorite players in the league, Canada basketball guy, he's the Canadian Prince, we all know this.
Yeah.
When I saw everything happening this year, I'm like, man, SGA has finally made it. He's got the haters. He's got his apologists. He has everything, all of the above. He's truly become one of the best players in the league, and you love to see it coming from someone, again, starting off in the LA Clippers, slowly growing his way through the Thunder system, and finally the fruits of the labor being showcased this year, winning the championship and everything like that. SGA's had a phenomenal year for sure. I will talk more about the Thunder a little bit later on my list. But Jay, my number 4 of one of the biggest storylines for me this year. Jay, I think we have to remember how crazy the 2025 NBA draft lottery was. We have to remember how crazy it was. Because, mind you, we had not 1, not 2, but 3 teams outside of the top 4 odds jump in.
Yeah.
And it was some of the craziest possibilities ever.
Yeah.
First off, Dallas Mavericks, after trading away Luka Doncic, this is why people thought this was a fix. They jump off from the number 10, number 11 odds, and they end up getting Cooper Flag with the number 1 pick. They won the draft lottery. Everyone knew, wow, they finally got their white savior, even after committing, NBA treason with Luka Doncic.
Right.
Not just that, though.
Yeah.
The San Antonio Spurs, 2 years after getting Victor Wembanyama with the number 1 overall pick, get the number 2 pick in this draft, being able to draft yet another guard in Dylan Harper after trading for De'Aaron Fox, after drafting Stephon Castle the year before and winning Rookie of the Year. Now they have one of the best guard rotations in basketball.
Yeah.
Just solidifying the future of the San Antonio Spurs, potentially starting a dynasty over there.
Yeah.
And not just that, Jay, at number 3, the Philadelphia 76ers, and people forget about this. If their pick landed outside the top 6,
it
would have gone to OKC.
Yeah.
It would have gone to OKC.
That's crazy, dude.
And we saw the lengths that this team was willing to tank to get to this point.
Dude.
And they were still with the 5th or 6th best odds in this.
Yeah.
They jump into number 3, get VJ Edgecombe, and he looks like that him, Maxey, and McCain are going to be the future of the 76ers. It feels like their future has been saved.
Yes.
While you see teams like the Wizards, the Hornets, the Nets,
the Jazz,
the Pelicans, the Jazz, the Pelicans, those 5 teams who have been infinitely cursed over the 2020s, just fall outside of the top 3 for these young futures.
Yeah.
I think we have to remember how crazy that was at the time.
Yeah.
And the fact that these 3 teams, who clearly didn't need these top prospects, got their way and solidified their future. We just have to remember how crazy that was. And the fact that all those 5 teams who have been buns for the last 5 years just continue to drop, man. And that's when all these small market teams saying, oh, the big market curses and all of that. The NBA is doing it all for them. Whether you want to believe that or not is up to you. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that this 2025 draft lottery was probably the craziest draft lottery, maybe in NBA history, definitely of the 21st century.
No, man, you're definitely right. And it's funny because I'll kind of piggyback off that because my next one anyway was the Mavericks landing Cooper Flag. But I'll give you a different angle from it that even further kind of pushes it. Because from a Bulls fan's perspective, you want to talk about one of those teams of mediocrity? We lost Cooper Flag's percentages basically off a coin flip. It was between the Bulls and the Dallas Mavericks for those percentage odds to be at that space. And had the Bulls won that coin flip, it would have been the Bulls picking number 1 overall. If everything plays out the same, it's the Bulls picking number 1.
Oh, bro, don't worry. As a Toronto Raptor fan, it was them and the Spurs for the number 2 overall pick on the last number, and we lost out to the Spurs.
Hey, man. So, like you said, and again, that's my third. So we're kind of just looping these together at this point. But I mean, you make a really great point here. I mean, again, so much movement in the lottery itself, just before the picks are even made. Like you said, so many odds that significantly favored teams that were much lower in terms of their chances to springboard up. And I mean, if you're Utah, you're probably pissed, right? Utah tried to perfect this, and here they are. They end up going with Ace Bailey, and not to say that Ace Bailey is underperformed or anything like that, because he's in a very developmental system in Utah where they got a lot of guys trying to build up at one time right now. But he didn't even want to be in Utah. If you let all the the pre-draft conversations start up, he wasn't even huge on being in Utah, for example, right? Another interesting thing you could point out is, in that same draft, shout out to the Charlotte Hornets for sticking with what just made the most sense for what they thought was best for their team. A lot of people thought, hey, maybe Charlotte will just take Ace Bailey, even if he said he doesn't want to play with LaMelo Ball, because at the end of the day, BPA, man, we the Charlotte Hornets. We need talent.
We need talent.
But guess what? Colin Knippel has been exactly what the doctor ordered for that team. And the only thing that's really hurt them is that Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball have not been consistently healthy and on the floor. And that's really taken them out of, being a much better basketball team. Don't get me wrong. They got a lot more to build on beyond just those three guys. But not having those guys all together healthy consistently throughout the season has definitely made it hard to see what they fully can look like as a squad. But Colin Knippel has been single-handedly the leader in terms of making this team even watchable, let alone interesting, right, to follow as far as what they've done this year. The lottery had so much happen, but TV, I would say at the same time, this might sound kind of weird, but this might be the first draft in a little while where it feels like almost everybody in the lottery went exactly where they needed to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Like, I feel like number one with Cooper Flag. Look, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The white savior complex situation with Dallas landing number one feels insane. But at the same time, we knew that fan base desperately needed a baton pass. If you're gonna move Luka Doncic, they need something to even make them worthy of being watchable this upcoming season. We learned that even more so given the fact that Kyrie Irving is set to miss most of this year, and Anthony Davis has been on and off the floor so far this season, right? Then you look at the San Antonio Spurs, Dylan Harper, silent assassin type, comes in. I saw something earlier today that he's like slightly leading in percentages right now for most likely to win Sixth Man of the Year. And that's kind of just what the Spurs need him to be right now. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people were worried that the De'Aaron Fox element would make it where maybe they're going to have to move off of somebody. Dude, if you decide to move off of Stephon Castle right now because of De'Aaron Fox, you're drunk. Yeah. If you decide to move off of Dylan Harper because
keep all three.
If you decide to move off of Dylan Harper because of De'Aaron Fox, you're drunk. If you decide to move off of De'Aaron Fox because of those two guys, I think you're also making a bad decision given what De'Aaron Fox has brought to the table. And TV, we've talked about this on the podcast so much. Nothing has been more valuable in the NBA over the last 2 to 3 seasons than depth, man. Ain't nothing wrong with being super talented at one position, dog. Ain't nothing wrong with that. VJ Edgecombe with Philly, like you said, brought new life to them. Colin Knippel there with the Charlotte Hornets. You go down the list, I feel like a lot of guys land. Jeremiah Fears with New Orleans right now is one of those underrated stories not getting enough traction again because New Orleans has been very, very butt cheek so far this season, right? But the combination of him and Derek Queen has been huge. Like, I feel like this draft, the only guy maybe I'm a little worried about is your boy landed with the Bulls, and Noah Essengay hasn't been exactly what I wish he would be.
Give him time.
But I just crack jokes because he's on my team. But other than that, man, I feel like a lot of guys landed exactly where they needed to be, bro. And I think that's another little interesting fact about how the NBA draft fell was not just that all the number stuff made everything crazy, but I feel like all the teams did pretty good with their due diligence as far as getting the guy they were supposed to get.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm glad, especially we're gonna. That again, one of my honorable mentions was talking about how great this 2025 draft class has started. Again, you talk about a lot of guys in the lottery. Derek Queen being a late lottery pick has looked fantastic. VJ, Dylan has looked great coming off the bench. Cooper Flag, just so many guys that you're going to be like, okay, this guy's gonna be a multiple-time All-Star. This guy's gonna be in the league for the next 15 years. One of the deepest drafts in recent memory, and the fact that they're performing in year one right away has been fantastic. And just seeing how everything just has transpired. One of the craziest NBA draft seasons that we've ever seen, been a part of. Yeah. And just absolutely crazy. Is there anything you want to add? Because I know at number 3 you said about Cooper Flag with the Dallas Mavericks.
No, I mean, there's nothing really else. But like you said, I mean, this draft, I think we're going to reflect on this draft class at the end of the season and say it was much deeper than I think we even gave it credit. Remember, when we came into the year, you know, it was Cooper Flag or bust, obviously, was number one. Yes. But then you had the Dylan Harper, You had the
BJ.
VJ Edgecombe. You had the
Ace.
Ace Bailey fight for number 2, number 3. Right? You know, you
Yep.
had all of that. I think we're gonna look back at this draft class and be like, wow, dude, this was a way deeper class than we gave it credit.
Yeah.
Way deeper class than we gave it credit. And we're gonna see a lot of these players as real rotational pieces. And dang it, TV, that's what the league needs. You know what I mean? I saw a interesting quote from Austin Rivers earlier today that said that the NBA's top heavy talent is as good as it's ever been as far as the elite of the elite.
Yes.
But the middle class area is not as strong as on par with the late 90s, early 2000s talent in the middle class area. I thought that was a really interesting take because first of all, you have to decide who the middle class of the early 2000s time frame is, number 1, but number 2, I actually think the middle class of the NBA is starting to fill out very nicely with some of the new crop of talent that's come through.
I think it's elite. I mean, you could see with all these guys like jumping into these like new roles and like not like seamlessly fitting, but they can like, you know, still perform at a high level, putting up good numbers. I think if anything, I mean, I think just overall, I don't. It's hard to believe for saying like, oh, the Stars are better than they used to, this and that. I just think the whole league is just really good. We're in a really good place right now, like in general. Saying that the middle class is not as good as the 2090s is actually kind of crazy to me because I think it's like,
you know what I
the
mean?
most
Like,
talented it's been.
yeah, I thought that was a really interesting take because, you know, for me, my biggest thing, we talk about it on the podcast so much about the importance of depth talent and two-way ability and portability, right? The ability to fit not just on multiple teams, but multiple schemes, multiple positions, right? Offensively and defensively. And I think we're learning that, you know, overall skill set versatility is so important in today's NBA. We saw that from the Oklahoma City Thunder who won the championship. The ability to see skill set versatility, right? You have smaller guards like Casey Wallace that can shoot the three and guard in space, one of the best point of attack defenders in the NBA. But then you have Jalen Williams at 6'8", but he was able to play center for the Oklahoma City Thunder in a handful of games last year when Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren and even Jalen Williams, Big J Will were injured last season. Like seeing that type of roster flexibility just due to like the overall talent pool we have in today's NBA. I think 2025, again, even with Indiana, I would say in their play style, Indiana taught us that up-tempo play style can win in the postseason, right? You know, they debunked the overall, the long-standing theory that, you know, in the postseason, the game slows down, it gets more physical, the ref swallows the whistle more often, right? And their play style just completely counteracted all of that. Right. And it's because not just were they playing with a different style that other teams couldn't match, but they had so much versatility up and down the roster as far as being able to guard multiple positions, outplay different teams, things of that nature. And I think we're seeing teams understand that they need to draft that way as well and really lean into positional versatility and two-way play and ball handling, dribble pass, shoot, high IQ. Like, shoot, if the middle class isn't as talented as it was once upon a time, basketball IQ is at least getting a lot better across the league. I think it's improving a decent amount across the league for sure.
And the NBA is as good as it's ever been, bro. And I think it's going to continue to progress even more with this draft class coming up too. The NBA is in a really good place, and I'm super glad to see that all these guys are like, fitting in really nicely. And a lot of these teams, their future looking a lot more bright because of it. But yeah, like you mentioned, you're number 3. Cooper Fly going to Dallas Mavericks. We discussed that again, that whole crazy thing with, especially after the Luka trade. Probably gonna get into that a bit later too. But let's go into my number 3 because now we can like move on to this. The Indiana Pacers first half of the year, especially the first half of the year. And Jay, we ought to take this back all the way to January 1st because at that moment, the Pacers were 20-20. They were like, I think not 2020, but they were basically a 500 team. They actually were kind of disappointing in the first half of the 2024-2025 season, coming off a good playoff run the year prior.
Yeah.
But man, from January to the finals, they had, I think, the second best record in basketball next to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
During that time period. And just looking back at that playoff run, man, that was some magical stuff. There's a reason why it felt like 90% of people were Indiana Pacers fans during that finals because
Yeah.
they freaking, not to use a cheesy term, but they kind of stole the hearts of a lot of NBA fans. A lot of NBA fans just became fans of theirs. And you got to look through the whole playoff run. I mean, the first round, people were so hyped because it was the ongoing rivalry between the Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Indiana Pacers got the best of them, and then we had the whole Halliburton dad situation with him and Giannis Antetokounmpo already, getting headlines at the beginning of the playoffs, taking down the number one seeded Cleveland Cavaliers, albeit with a lot of injury, with some injuries to some of their top guys. But you remember some of the crazy moments from that series? The fact that the Pacers, and I think it was Game 3, came back from down 8 with 43 seconds left.
Yeah.
They were already showing some of that magic in the second round. Moving on to the third round, Halliburton in MSG recreating the whole Reggie Miller choke job, the whole choke job situation, one of the defining moments of last season, coming into conference finals and going on this Cinderella type run to the point where they take which many people looked at as the Thanos of the NBA, the unstoppable force in the NBA and the Oklahoma City Thunder. People thought going into the finals, oh, the Pacers are gonna get destroyed. We saw what the Thunder team just did to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they were one of the best defenses in the league. They were facing one of the best players in the league in Anthony Edwards. The Pacers went in there, won game 1 because of another crazy Halliburton game winner, and they took that near unstoppable Oklahoma City Thunder team to 7 games. And in that 7th game where Halliburton hit his first 3 threes, it was all cut short because of a really unfortunate Achilles injury again.
Yeah.
That's really affected them this season, of course, but I'm not going to let that take away from the fact that this first half of the year, it felt like it was the Indiana Pacers world and we were all just living in it because it felt like they were the main characters of the NBA. Halliburton was looking like, people were saying he was one of the most overrated players in the league. He put that to rest after the first 2 rounds. And man, it's just a whole Pacers run, man. It's hard to replicate that sort of thing because we see these sort of things in March Madness all the time. People kind of hang on to the underdog and all that, and it felt like the Pacers were the team people were hanging on to from round 1.
Yeah.
And they almost did it. Almost a storybook ending. But then but tragedy struck, man. And we were robbed of what would have been an amazing Game 7. Halliburton, like I mentioned, 9 points in the first 3 minutes of this game. He looked like he was bound to have an all-time great performance. But unfortunately cut short. But I'm not going to let that take away from how great the Pacers were last year and how magical that run was. Because that's something that there's very few times in the NBA where you catch that sort of magic. And we had that last season.
Yeah, man, it's funny. See, for people who wonder about this stuff, me and TV do not discuss, these lists a lot of times before, we record. A lot of times we try to keep things very, very secretive. That way we can surprise each other on the pod. But it never surprises me when we overlap because we think about the game so similarly. This was my number 2.
Oh, okay.
The reason why is my number 2 is because of a lot of things you already said, right? I think that the most interesting part that you threw in there was, the NCAA, Cinderella story aspect of it all, right? This was a team that you almost wanted to see do it. You almost wanted to just see them get it done, right? This was the team that, catches Kentucky in the first round of the NCAA tournament and down goes Frazier, right? This is the Florida Gulf Coast makes it to the Sweet 16 type deal, and they made it happen. And, this was also a season, a lot of people have to remember, this wasn't just them recovering from a rough start to the year where, they're playing 500 basketball, trying to figure things out. This is them trying to build off the season prior where they just made the Eastern Conference Finals before. And a lot of people are asking the question, are they just the Atlanta Hawks do-over team? Right? That's the question everybody's wondering. And around that time that you're talking about where they're playing 500 basketball, people are like, Tyrese don't look like the same guy he was before. Remember he gets injured around the time of the NBA Cup. Remember? Yeah. He's injured around the NBA Cup. He comes back and a lot of people are like,
yeah, the hamstring injury.
Yeah, they start to ask a question like, okay, wait a minute. He's not looking like himself. Oh my goodness, is the 65-game rule starting to really impact people? and from an injury perspective, because it's forcing guys to feel like they need to come back sooner. Remember, these are all the things that were coming into the fray around the Indiana Pacers. And the question was like, man, pre-NBA Cup, pre-All-Star break, Tyrese Halliburton looking like an MVP. After he comes back from the hamstring, how dangerous is Indiana Pacers team really? Guess how dangerous, TV? They come back and they make the same run again, but then they cherry on top it because they get through the Eastern Conference Finals. They make it to the NBA Finals. And more than anything, and you mentioned beforehand, they pushed the OKC Thunder to 7 games in a series that I think when we saw that, when anybody saw that matchup, when the series first started, slaughter. We thought it was GG's in the chat.
I will say, I had this series going 6, but that was just more of a respect. I said that this was more just a respect to the Pacers because of how good they were doing. But truly, in our minds, there was no way it was going to that point. There was just no way.
We never thought Game 7 was anywhere in the mix. You got to remember, let's take it a step further. TV for about a half of that game, maybe 2.5 quarters. Let's be honest. That game was in reach still.
TJ McConnell tried to really back the
you know what I'm saying?
Near the end.
To think that Indiana Pacers team made it through what they made it through. And again, don't get me wrong, they struck gold in a couple of series as they went through. They did. We're not going to define it by the injuries they were able to bypass. We still got to look at the fact that at the end of the day, you had to beat a team 4 times, right? And let's say, shoot, you can say the path they traveled. You don't have to play a fully healthy Damian Lillard. If you remember in that same Milwaukee series, Giannis actually missed time as well in that series.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot that Lillard had to miss some time too because of an injury. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So he misses time, right? You look at as they progress through. Different stuff happened that definitely favored Indiana, right? But Indiana earned every bit of what got them to the NBA Finals. And I think that unfortunately, I think things just struck where, they got so much luck though on the way that eventually, it's different when it's different when the Rabbit got the gun this time. And unfortunately, when things flipped, it flipped at the worst time humanly possible, But that Indiana Pacers team, dude, that will go down. That Indiana Pacers team, to me, dog, has to be up there in terms of feel-good story postseason runs. Has to be up there with, like, the We Believe Warriors, dude.
It's up there with the Dallas Mavericks for me, bro.
It's got to be up there, right?
Yeah.
I know that the difference between them and Dallas is Dallas got the job done. But, I mean, you got to really think, bro. Halliburton, they voted by players and coaches. Remember this. Voted as the most overrated player in the NBA. Remember that was a conversation at one point. The Indiana Pacers fighting the allegations of being considered a one-hit wonder after making the Eastern Conference Finals the year prior. Right? They had so many reasons to fall short from where they eventually ended up. They had so many reasons to fall short of that. Many thought that when they made the trade the year prior for Pascal Siakam, that wasn't going to be enough to really move the needle for them, right? And it ended up doing so much, and not only did we see it in year 1, but we saw it translate moving forward, right? So this Indiana Pacers team, like I said, they're going to historically go up there as one of the best feel-good story postseason runs in NBA history, and that's why I had them at number 2, honestly. I had him at number 2 for that very reason. And I picked a specific game, which was, again, that choke game against New York. The ball bounces up high in the sky, does a little Kawhi Leonard roll.
A foot on the line from winning that game.
On the
line, bro.
One of the craziest shots we'll ever see. I mean, it felt like they say the same thing about the Kawhi shot in 2019. It felt like the ball was up there forever.
Yeah.
And when it came down, it set the tone for, what eventually ended up being, again, a crazy, crazy run for them. That Indiana Pacers team, that'll be one of the biggest highlights of that run by far. Might even be the first highlight you play of that postseason run for the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, man. It's just if they could have just got it done. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, again, they had all the makings of a legendary platform because you had those individual moments, you had the performances, you had the top star there in Tyrese Halliburton, the second guy in Pascal Siakam becoming the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Everything
Yeah.
was there, and they couldn't get the job done because of one of the biggest what ifs in NBA history now, which is what if Tyrese Halliburton didn't get injured in Game 7. It's
Yeah.
going to be talked about for years, bro. I know, like, we don't really talk about the loser much, but I think this is going to be one of the what ifs that we're going to look back at, kind of like a Derrick Rose situation, kind of like
I totally agree.
how Grant Hill got injured. It's going to be the same thing with this Tyrese Halliburton, but to an extent where, man, we saw this man got injured in the NBA Finals Game 7. This is what we all dream of. We all dream about being in that situation, and he had to be taken out due to unfortunate circumstances. So, yeah, one of the craziest stories of the year. I completely understand you having it at number 2. It's going to be something that I'm going to keep very fondly. It's like one of those, like, again, I'm a Raptor fan, you're a Bulls fan, but man, we were all Pacers fans at that time. We all wanted to see the Pacers complete this, to finish the story, taking a term out of the WWE, but we wanted to see them finish the story. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but just a great time. It was a great time to be a basketball fan watching that, man. It was so fun watching that Pacer team, for sure. But Jay, at number 2, you had the Pacers at number 2. I'm going to go with the Thunder at my number 2, and them really solidifying themselves as the NBA Thanos. I used that term earlier, but this is more than just the NBA Thanos for this year, but just being the guy who like has all the Infinity Stones for the next few years, because future also goes to OKC. I think this is the year that people finally realize not only do they have the best team in basketball, bro, they could add more. Excuse me? The Clippers being this bad can mean they have a top 10 pick. The Jazz, if they're not in the top 8, that's another lottery pick for the Thunder. Yes. Not only are the Thunder this good, not only like you mentioned, SGA had possibly the prototypical superstar year, the prototypical MVP year, winning MVP, Finals MVP, 2K cover, new shoe drop, all that.
Right.
Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren being healthy for this year, getting Isaiah Hartenstein for the season, trading for Alex Caruso, making the exact right moves to make sure they were champions for that year. But Jay, they got so much in the tool baskets to go. So just this season, they were able to unleash AJ Mitchell, and this man played like 8 minutes a game last year.
Right.
They have all these guys ready, and not only that, they can't be able to pay all these guys. We've seen what they can do. They're going to be able to flip these guys into more first-round picks.
Right.
And then they're going to replace these guys with their next first-round picks.
Right.
So the reason I have them over the Thunder is over the Pacers is, yes, the Pacers are a great field goal story of 2025. This felt like Infinity War for a lot of NBA fans because it's like, oh no, this is not just it. This is going to continue forever. The Thunder are going to be the next dynasty. And it's not like you can hate them as much for it like you did the Warriors for basically buying Kevin Durant. You're not going to say like, LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh, teamed up in Miami. You mentioned, Jay, this is all organic. They all drafted most of these guys, and they're going to draft even more. The developmental system is crazy good. Mark Daniel is one of the best coaches in the league. They have the best general manager who seems to fleece every trade that he's a part of in Sam Presti, unless you're trading for Ousmane Dieng.
Yeah.
But, Jay, this is a warning to the league. Today, tomorrow, and the future. It's going to continue to run through OKC, and unless someone ends up fleecing Sam Presti another way, this cycle that we see this year, it's just going to keep on going as long as they can continue to do the system, and they're going to continuously be probably the number 1 team in the league every single year until someone ends up stopping them. Obviously, we could see like the Pacers taking them to their limits, but man, if you think this Thunder team is going anywhere anytime soon, you are sadly mistaken.
I totally agree with you, man. I mean, this Thunder team is different, dude. I mean, like you said, let's go through the Infinity Stones, right? I mean, MVP caliber player, check. Defensive Player of the Year caliber player, check. One of the best number 2 options in the NBA in Jalen Williams. Got it. Depth. Well, you mentioned AJ Mitchell. Well, we got Cason Wallace. We got Aaron Wiggins. We got Isaiah Hartenstein. We got Isaiah Joe.
Caruso.
We got Caruso. We got Jalen Williams. Jay Will. Go Lou Dort. We still got Lou Dort. Go down the list, right? And then let's look at another one of the Infinity Stones as necessary. Well, are you a top 10 offense in the NBA? Yeah. Are you a top 10 defense in the NBA? Yeah. So we're good. Do you have one of the best front offices in the NBA as far as not just acquiring talent as far as the free agency market, but as far as identification of talent in the NBA draft? Yeah. Do you have favorable contracts around your max players so that you're able to, financially maneuver where you're not caught in salary cap hell, despite the fact that you have really talented top heavy team? Yeah. Do you have your future draft picks so that you're not completely screwed where if this thing falls apart, you can't kind of put things back together and kind of situate yourself to, be back in the fray, within a season or two? Yeah, so it sounds like
They have
when you pop
every
all the
base
stones
covered.
in,
They have every
yeah.
base covered.
I mean, when you put all the stones in, you snap. Hey, it looks like a team that's gonna be sitting at the top for a long time, like you said before, man. I mean, this is a team, and don't get me wrong, we've seen that they're clearly vulnerable. They're not impossible to beat. Same thing with Thanos, like you mentioned beforehand, right? Not impossible to beat, right? But I mean, dang. I
You're
mean,
gonna beat the
dang.
Avengers. You're
You're
gonna beat
gonna
the
have to
Avengers.
really do your thing. I mean, the San Antonio Spurs have been the closest thing to the Avengers we've had all season, dog. As far as even looking like a team that could really push the Oklahoma City Thunder to their limits. You gotta think, dude, in the postseason, I don't know if that's I don't know.
4 games to beat this team? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
man.
don't know, bro.
4 games in an NBA playoff setting with a chance to win a championship. I'm not saying San Antonio can't do it. I'm just saying that I can't use the regular season as a litmus test for that. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? We've
yeah,
seen in
yeah.
too many scenarios where a team whoops on another squad in the regular season, and when the playoffs come around, it's completely different. I'll give you a perfect example. TV, you remember the stat we read off, I think it was a year or two ago, that said that the Phoenix Suns beat the Timberwolves in every matchup during the regular
Oh my
season?
gosh, yeah, and
And
then they
then we
got
come into the
swept by the
postseason.
Wolves. And
Come on, man. And then we come into the postseason and the Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards comes out and whops on them. You can't use the regular season as a full-blown litmus test. It's a great exercise, but you can't use it as the end-all be-all, right? So San Antonio Spurs might have it in the regular season, but we don't know in the playoffs yet. And so that goes to show you that until we see it, we don't know just yet. You know what I mean? And you pair that with not just, like you said, not just this year, but what they're prepared with moving forward. This is a team. TV. SGA has not played in double-digit games as far as the fourth quarter is concerned. I heard a stat at one point that SGA hadn't played in, I think it was like 15 or 16 fourth quarters this season. That team walking around like that? I mean, come on, bro.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
why.
come on. What are we looking at right now? This, I'll put it this way. This is where I'm going to cap off my side of it. The Oklahoma City Thunder may not do it the way the Warriors did from a dynasty standpoint, right? Winning the championship a handful of times in a short period of time. But the Oklahoma City Thunder are built to have a San Antonio Spurs-like dynastic run in the form that maybe you don't win the championship every year over the course of a 10 to 15 plus year time frame. But you're going to be one of the most dominant regular season teams in the NBA. You're going to be one of those teams that's always in the mix to make the Western Conference Finals. And every couple of years, you're just going to be the team that's at the top of the mountain. They won 5 chips with Timmy D. I think OKC's positioned to put themselves in a really good spot to do something similar.
Yeah. For me, it feels like, at least from like the vantage point right now, not like the Warriors, where again, like the short period of time thing, but the fact that this is sustainable, I think, and people start to finally realize it now, because we've seen Sam Presti just gather up these draft picks. It's become a meme, right? Throughout the 2020s, that he just keeps getting these draft picks, getting ready to draft these 5th graders.
Yeah.
These 5th graders are going older now. And they're getting closer. And they're getting closer. And now it's getting scary. Now as the rest of the NBA, it's like, no, we didn't want to see these fifth graders grow yet. No, we're not ready.
And guess what? One of them just ends up being like AJ DePonsa or something crazy.
That's what I'm saying, bro. These are
You know
like,
what I
these
mean?
kids are all grown up. They're all
Dude.
grown up, and we're like, oh no. We
Oh,
made fun of
man.
them for all those years for getting all those picks. They knew what they were doing. Oh, that's why I feel like one of the biggest revelations in the NBA this year was like, yes, the Thunder are the best team. And I think they're clearly the best team in the NBA right now. But this is sustainable, and I think that's what people are scared about. Like
Yeah.
it's like it's the weird combination of, yes, we got maybe the again part of the Spurs aspect of it, but also the fact that, okay, this is like the Warriors where, like, okay, it feels like no one could beat them in the 7-game series too. So
Yeah.
it's just a weird dynamic. So yeah, definitely something to put into. So that is definitely my number 2. Jay, we've reached number 1.
Yeah.
Who do you got your number 1? I have a
So
feeling
it's
we might have the
interesting.
same one. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's interesting. Whatever my number 1 is, hopefully your number 1 is the opposite of this, because there's 2 things that happened this year that we've not really discussed just yet. I'm gonna name mine, and hopefully yours is the other one. Otherwise, it'll come up as an honorable mention. Hopefully, make up for it. But my number 1, had to be, just felt like it had to be, Kevin Durant on another team. Like,
Really? Okay.
Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets. First of all, everyone from that OG Oklahoma City Thunder team has now worn the red jersey.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there,
Yeah.
by the way. Every single one of those main superstars from that team has worn the red jersey. If you want to go a little bit deeper, Kevin Martin also was a Houston Rocket once upon a time.
I mean that was a trade for James Harden, right? Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I think it's less of Kevin Durant ending up on the Rockets and more of just the surprise that, man, the lack of success of the Phoenix Suns in that short time period with him and Devin Booker together as a tandem.
A disaster.
You just thought it was good. You just had much higher expectations for that team, and you knew they were taking a gamble. You're moving off of Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. They both are 3-and-D wings. These guys don't just grow on trees. Mikal Bridges is taking a step forward as an offensive shot creator. Cam Johnson obviously knocked down 3-point shooter. And you just ask yourself, like, Devin Booker's never had long-term sustained success with his Suns team. Did they push their chips into the middle of the table too soon? Then they doubled down on it with the Bradley Beal acquisition. When everybody and their mama thought that was probably the bad move from the very minute it went through, right? And to see all of it blow up, Bradley Beal ends up on the Clippers. Kevin Durant's a Houston Rocket now. I think it's less about Kevin ended up on the Rockets and more about just how underwhelming Kevin Durant and that team was over the course of basically a year and a half, 2 years, because TV, it kind of further pushes along a narrative that I know he probably hates, and I know that a lot of Kevin Durant fans probably hate to hear, but his career definitely would be viewed much differently without those 2 championships in Golden State. Because what he's been able to accomplish, or a better way to phrase it is the lack thereof real true accomplishments outside of those 2 championships, it definitely would put him in a much different conversation.
I 100% get what you mean. It's like, you got to remember, this Suns team, Matt Ishbia comes in, puts, again, all his chips in the middle of the table. He's that new owner that wants to really make an impact. Go for Kevin Durant. Go for Bradley Beal. Try to get this team together. And it just turned out to be a colossal failure. Never mind not making the playoffs last year. They had a chance to go up against the Timberwolves team, which you mentioned, swept them in the regular season a year prior, and just get swept. This team just never got it going. We saw Devin Booker and this team just, like, again, not stay healthy, try to just put a bunch of role players to the side without actually taking a fit, and it didn't really work out. It just turned out to be an absolute disaster. And the fact, and like you mentioned, Kevin Durant going to another team. If it wasn't for that whole Golden State run, I mean, people view T-Mac in a certain way because he was just able to be like a numbers guy and not really win championships. Kevin Durant's maybe like a couple tiers above that. But again, those championships really do a lot of the heavy lifting, again, for his legacy. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does with the Houston Rockets. He's been great so far. But yeah, just Kevin Durant, just continue to move and move. It's just like you first thought he was gonna be a one-team guy with the way that he was looking with the Thunder, and then Golden State, Brooklyn, Phoenix. You wouldn't think that Kevin Durant would be a 5-team guy, but here we are. So
Yeah.
definitely interesting storyline. Great for the Rockets. They were able to capitalize off the fact that the whole Jalen Green experiment wasn't working. They really needed to get that next go-to scorer in the clutch. They got one of the best guys in NBA history to do that. So let's see how they're going to do this year and the following year after that. We probably don't have many years of KD left.
Right.
But should be interesting. And I think that the Thunder really did get the good guy over there. Jay, I appreciate you going for that way because we all know what the real number one is and what the biggest and most memorable story is, because it feels like there's so many aspects of it that just continues to come up every single day.
Definitely.
Luka Doncic to the Lakers.
Crazy.
I'm saying it right now, but I'm just thinking yeah, this happened this year. And to be honest, it still doesn't make sense. We are now 10 months removed from that event, the 9/11 of the NBA, that the Lakers can somehow get the new star somehow, some way, after it looks like they were destined to be a bottom feeder team in the next couple of years after LeBron retires. No, they get their butt saved by getting Luka Doncic. And somehow, some way, still doesn't make any sense. Nico Harrison was fired 8 months later because it was, again, NBA terrorism that he was able to take down a team that just went to the finals, by the way, just went to the finals the year before, and trade away a generational talent. He's out of a job. The Dallas Mavericks are back to square one. Thank goodness they got Cooper Flag, like you mentioned. But at the same time, a generational talent in Dallas, and probably the most shocking trade in NBA history, because no one saw this coming. We all know the stories about the coffee shop dates between Rob Pelinka and Nico Harrison and all that. They all did this in the shadows, and they were able to pull off this trade somehow. Still can't believe it. We've talked ad nausea over the last year about this trade, and we'll continue to talk about for years to come. It's going to be talked about when the playoffs come up, whenever Luka comes back to Dallas, and vice versa. The effects of this trade is still very prevalent, Jay. And no matter what, when you think of 2025, the NBA in 2025, it will be defined by that trade. Because what the heck was that? People are still questioning it to this day. And it's, again, will forever be until we see something like that happen. I don't know when we're going to see this happen again. But this is going to happen again, because this just doesn't happen in the NBA. And now even opens up the opportunity. Now people are starting to doubt, what is there any other trades, brewing in the background that we have no idea about because this trade happened? We don't know. But the fact that it happened, again, we're in December 30th at the time of recording. I still can't believe it happened.
I mean, yeah, and the other thing too, TV, is it's crazy to think about. Here, Luka Doncic is with another player linked to him historically forever now. You know, we talked about it once upon a time, the Trae Young trade meaning so much, and of course, both of those guys have made conference finals. Luka eventually got to the NBA finals before falling to the Boston Celtics as well. But I mean, now Cooper Flag and his long-term success, he was already going to be a guy that was heavily touted, heavily weighed against some of the greatest, first overall picks in NBA history, because, he was getting LeBron James comps and Jason Tatum comps and all these other different things, prior to even being drafted, right? Most of his buzz came during the USA Select time before he'd even really played very much in a Duke Blue Devils uniform even, right? But at the same time, dude, I mean, here goes yet another player that's career is going to be weighed against Luka Doncic, and Luka Doncic is going to have the Lakers luster around him for, hopefully, at least for Lakers fans' sake, presumably the rest of his career. At least that's the hope. Man, I'm not going to lie to you, dude. Again, that's a trade. That's a trade that could define the 2020s even. Truthfully.
I mean, to be honest, last decade was probably defined by the decision by LeBron and also KD going to the Warriors.
Yeah.
It's still to that magnitude, even maybe higher, because again, this wasn't his choice. This was a guy who was coming off an NBA Finals appearance, being traded in his prime for not even the biggest package. And I think the package is what's going to be talked about the most. The fact that it was just Anthony Davis, Max Christie, 1 first-round pick, and what was it? I don't know what it was. I forgot the rest of it, but that's basically what it was. Still going to be insane today, and it's going to be, again, malpractice and NBA management that's going to be talked about for years on end.
Yeah, this is one of those things that's going to shape the trajectory for sure of two totally different franchises. Thankfully, they're on two, you know, totally different ends of the spectrum as far as where they really land right now. Um, One is, firmly in, championship or bust mode, it feels like right now. The other team clearly is trying to find themselves in their build around Cooper Flag. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this, shapes out. But I mean, easily one of the, like you said, one of the trades that's gonna shape the 2020s, and one that, I mean, man, I mean, let's take it a step further and go beyond just these two teams, right? I think we learned in 2025 that no name is safe regardless of what you
Yeah.
think the player's value is, right? If Luka Doncic can be traded from the Dallas Mavericks, anybody can be put on the trade block for the right price. And even if the price is dumb, there's factors beyond just the price tag that could still determine a trade being put through. This is the closest to NBA 2K, the actual live and well NBA regular season has ever looked, as far as things like being able to make blockbuster trades and things of that nature. And I think it's just uncapped, a version of Pandora's box we never really thought was palpable in the NBA, as far as like, there are truly no untouchables now.
It
And I
really
never
is.
thought we'd get to that point. And I'm sure there are still teams that have, their untouchable players, but no one truly is untouchable anymore. That's the thing I learned in 2025 more than anything.
Yes.
Is
Yeah.
nobody is truly as untouchable as you think. So
Then that's a great way to end it off there, man. That's why, like, even like with all these like names or in trades and stuff, we always have to think like, is there anything else brewing in the background? Because again, this wasn't telegraphed. No one had reports on this coming in. No one had any idea this was going on. And it just happened.
yeah,
In the age of social media, where it feels like everyone knows everything about each other, where everything knows what's going on behind the scenes,
yeah,
they kept this to the chest. The biggest trade in NBA history.
yeah.
Luka Doncic is a Laker. If you told me in January 2025 that was the case, I would be laughing at your face if you were even thought of that as an idea. And now we've lived through 10 months of this reality. Absolutely insane.
Crazy.
Absolutely insane. And it will be definitely the defining factor of 2025. Jay, crazy good top five. Before we head out again, a couple of honorable mentions. What are some things that you were going to talk about potentially making your list but didn't end up making it?
Man, I mean, one of my honorable mentions was obviously just the big turnaround for the Detroit Pistons in 2025. I mean, definitely, this was it was funny. I just looked into it recently. You remember the tweet from Kyle Kuzma that was just like, at this point, you just don't want to be the team that falls to
Yeah.
the Detroit Pistons. You know what I mean? And they go from that team to a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference last year. And this year, here they are sitting at the top of the East. You know what I mean? And or last season, excuse me. But all that turnaround happened in 2025. And to see them turn around from being like one of the biggest laughing stocks, honestly, let's be real, one of the biggest laughing stocks in the NBA, to being a team that like really is in contention this season to make some noise in a very dysfunctional Eastern Conference, as you touched on very early in the podcast. That's huge, man. That's a huge one. For me, obviously, 2025, another thing that happened, LeBron James and, breaking the scoring title. That happens this past year. That happens in 2025 as well. One of the biggest things that happened, because it's just it'll never happen again.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the likelihood of breaking his scoring record. I just don't know how real that is. You know what I mean? So that was probably another one of them that was on my honorable mention list as well. So yeah, those probably be my two main ones.
Yeah, no, 100%. Those are definitely some crazy big moments that will definitely be talked about for a while. Some of the other ones I had in mind, just like some things I was about to potentially add to my top five over here. I had the unraveling of the Clippers. I know that didn't really happen last year, but the fact that we started off 2025-2026 season with the Kawhi scandal and
Yeah.
and the Tree Company and all that, the Clippers going up to a horrendous start compared to their season last year, where they were, they were almost one game away from making it to the second round, to the sending home of Chris Paul. Just the unraveling of the Clippers earlier on in the season, definitely one of the biggest talking points, especially of this season for sure. I was gonna say, to talk about the Wemby era. People thought, maybe Wemby would be the guy to define this decade. I feel like, yes, he's known to be like, one of the top guys in the league, but I feel like this year he's like, okay, this guy might be one of those like generational, guys that we're gonna talk about for like, we can't talk about the NBA history without talking about Victor Wembanyama sort of thing. So like, I feel like that conversation being talked about. Tank Battle 2025, Jay. I know this was like earlier on in the year, but the fact that we saw the 76ers, the Toronto Raptors, the Utah Jazz, the New Orleans Pelicans, Jay, some of these lineups that they put out at the end of last season, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
For real.
To try and tank their pick. The 76ers didn't want to move out of the top 6, obviously, because we talked about it. Their pick could have gone to the Thunder. But a lot of early injuries. The fact that they had those crazy lineups here at the end of the year, absolutely crazy. I feel like that was a big talking point, which isn't being talked about right now. And then the only other thing I have here, people thought that we were gonna have the summer of trades. Remember, Shams talked about. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast. How Shams kind of gave us the impression that it's gonna be a crazy year, crazy offseason for trades, a lot of player movement. Nope, we just ended up getting the summer of Michael Porter Jr. And I think that was the other thing that we ended up getting. But yeah. 2025 has been an incredible year for basketball on and off the court. Lots of stuff to talk about. If there are any other moments that we didn't discuss on this podcast that you like want us to maybe talk about in another video or like in a tech talk or something like that, you let us know down in the comment section below. But Jay, crazy year 2025, crazy year for the Hit Your Feelings podcast. Thank you guys for watching. Any closing remarks for the end of this year?
Man, 2025 was definitely a different vibe as far as covering the NBA. It was a lot going on. It was definitely a lot of drama off the court more than it was on the court, I feel like. But the on the court storyline still held up to the hype. And I'm just excited to see what 2026 brings us, man.
100%, man. It's been a fantastic year for the podcast. And we're just like super excited to see what's to come. We have a lot of stuff coming up for you guys. We have a lot of stuff planned for 2025, so be on the lookout for that. A lot of content on the Hit Your Free Throws page. Make sure you check us out everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, podcast networks. You can find us all there. We had a great 2025. We had the best year support-wise. Again, thank you guys so much for subscribing to the channel, following us. We had our best year in terms of like a good follower count. Continue to grow on YouTube, more subscribers, all that stuff. We're on the road to 100 subscribers, so please check us out there. And we're going to have a great 2026. We're going to keep talking about basketball, NBA, NWNBA, all that stuff. We're going to be covering that, so be sure you lock into the Hit Your Feelings podcast. You can find us everywhere. You have no excuse not to find us, and just continue to follow along with this journey. It's good to continue to go on next year. We have a lot of great things planned, and I'm super excited to talk more and more basketball next in the 2026 for sure. Thank you for 2026, but more importantly, more excited for 2026. But yeah, Jay, this is the end of today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check out, again, both of our links down below. Check out our channels, all that good stuff. But yeah, hope you all have a fantastic day. Hope you have a fantastic New Year's, everything like that. Hope you all have a fantastic 2025. Good things for all of you guys listening in 2026. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out.
Peace.